The idea behind delete and fast forward reflects a way of thinking that removes emotional weight from both the past and the future, leaving only the present moment as something a person can truly influence. This philosophy, expressed in the opening reflection, centers on the belief that yesterday cannot be changed and tomorrow cannot be controlled, so energy spent worrying about either is ultimately wasted. Instead, attention is redirected toward what is happening right now, where action is still possible and meaningful. It is a mindset that encourages clarity over anxiety, grounding a person in immediate reality rather than imagined outcomes or lingering regrets. This way of thinking is often adopted by individuals who have experienced long-term pressure, emotional fatigue, or repeated loss. It becomes not just an idea but a survival tool. The emphasis on now creates a mental boundary that protects against spiraling thoughts. In practice, it allows people to function even when life feels unstable, because it removes the burden of trying to solve everything at once. The present becomes the only manageable space, and within it, decisions regain simplicity. At its core, this philosophy does not deny the existence of pain or uncertainty. Instead, it limits their influence by refusing to give them control over current behavior. It becomes a form of emotional discipline, where focus replaces rumination. For those who adopt it fully, life becomes less about prediction and more about participation, where each moment is treated as its own complete opportunity. The cost of worry and the illusion of control. The belief that worry accomplishes nothing forms another key part of this perspective. Worry often feels productive because it creates the illusion of preparation, yet in reality, it rarely changes outcomes. Instead, it drains emotional and physical energy, leaving a person mentally exhausted without solving the underlying issue. The statement that worry will make you sick reflects a long-held understanding that chronic stress has real consequences on the body, including fatigue, weakened immunity, and long-term health deterioration. Scientific studies have supported the idea that prolonged negative thinking can trigger hormonal imbalances, increasing cortisol levels and contributing to both physical and emotional strain. In this sense, worry becomes not just an emotional habit but a biological burden. The body reacts as if danger is constant, even when no immediate threat exists. Over time, this state can distort perception, making everyday challenges feel larger and more overwhelming than they are. Choosing not to worry, therefore, is not denial but selection. It is a conscious decision to limit mental engagement with problems that cannot be solved in the present moment. This shift allows energy to be redirected toward actions that are actually available. While this mindset is difficult to maintain consistently, it becomes easier with practice, especially when reinforced by lived experience that proves worry rarely changes outcomes. Willie Nelson and the weight of a long life in music. Few artists embody endurance and vulnerability as openly as Willie Nelson, whose life represents both artistic triumph and human fragility. At 92 years old, his journey through American music has spanned generations, cultural shifts, and personal transformations. He is widely admired not only for his contributions to country music but also for the honesty with which he has lived his life in public view. His calm demeanor and reflective attitude have made him a symbol of resilience in an industry that often demands constant reinvention. Yet behind the iconic image lies a man who has experienced deep personal challenges. Age has brought physical limitations that contrast sharply with the energetic performer he once was. The passage of time has reduced his physical strength, but it has also deepened his perspective. Rather than resisting aging, he often speaks about it with acceptance, acknowledging both its limitations and its clarity. This combination of openness and endurance is what makes his current chapter so emotionally powerful. He is no longer simply performing for entertainment. He is performing as a witness to time itself. Every song carries traces of memory, loss, and reflection, transforming concerts into moments of shared human experience rather than just musical events. The decline of physical strength and the reality of aging. One of the most significant challenges Willie Nelson faces is the gradual decline of his physical health, particularly his respiratory system. Years of smoking and constant touring have contributed to chronic lung conditions, including emphysema and COPD. These conditions make breathing increasingly difficult, especially during physical exertion or long performances. What once felt effortless now requires careful management and frequent rest. The effects of this decline became publicly visible when he had to cancel concerts due to breathing difficulties. These cancellations marked a turning point in how fans perceived him, shifting from the idea of an indestructible performer to a more vulnerable human being. The realization that even legendary artists are subject to physical limits was difficult for many to accept, but it reflected a universal truth about aging. Beyond respiratory issues, he also experiences joint pain, reduced stamina, and general fatigue. These symptoms affect everything from walking on stage to holding instruments for extended periods. Despite these challenges, he continues to perform, adapting his routines and pacing himself more carefully. His determination to keep creating music despite physical limitations demonstrates a deep commitment to his craft. The emotional impact of letting go of smoking. For decades, smoking was deeply tied to Willie Nelson's identity, both personally and publicly. It was part of his image, his lifestyle, and even his cultural symbolism within outlaw country music. However, as his health deteriorated, continuing this habit became impossible. The decision to quit was not simply a choice but a medical necessity driven by declining lung function. Letting go of smoking represented more than a habit change. It was an emotional separation from a long-standing companion. Many people who undergo similar transitions describe feelings of restlessness, loss, and disorientation. For someone who had maintained this routine for over half a century, the adjustment was even more profound. He reportedly replaced smoking with alternatives such as edibles and non-combustible cannabis products, allowing him to remain connected to aspects of his lifestyle without damaging his health further. However, those close to him have noted that the ritual itself, the lighting, the pause, the familiarity, cannot be replaced. What remains is adaptation, not replacement. This change highlights a broader truth about aging. Sometimes identity must evolve, not by choice, but by necessity. Even deeply personal habits must eventually yield to survival. Health struggles beyond the lungs and physical limitations. Willie Nelson's health challenges extend beyond respiratory issues. Over time, he has also faced chronic pain, diabetes, and general age-related decline that affects mobility and stamina. These conditions collectively shape how he navigates daily life and performances. Simple tasks require more effort, and recovery from exertion takes longer than it once did. Despite these limitations, he continues to engage with music, often performing seated or with physical support. His guitar, a longtime companion, plays a crucial role in stabilizing his presence on stage. It serves not only as an instrument but as a symbol of continuity, connecting his present self to decades of performance history. Medical support and careful planning now surround his touring schedule. Crew members monitor his condition closely, ensuring that performances are adjusted to his physical capacity. Long rehearsals are avoided when possible, and rest periods are prioritized. These adjustments reflect a shift in how legacy artists operate in later life. Performance becomes less about endurance and more about sustainability. Even with reduced physical ability, the emotional and artistic value of his presence remains significant to audiences worldwide. Loss, memory, and the emotional toll of time. One of the most profound aspects of Willie Nelson's later life is the emotional burden of outliving many close friends and collaborators. Over the decades, he has lost fellow musicians, bandmates, and peers who shared the road with him during the most formative years of his career. Each loss represents not only personal grief but also the disappearance of shared history. These losses are often reflected subtly in his performances. Moments of silence before certain songs, slower tempos, or reflective pauses all suggest an awareness of absence. Rather than expressing grief through words, he often channels it through music, allowing emotion to surface indirectly. This quiet form of remembrance adds depth to his concerts. Audiences are not just listening to songs, they are witnessing memory in motion. Each performance becomes a bridge between past and present, honoring those who are no longer physically there but remain present in influence and spirit. Over time, this accumulation of loss creates a different relationship with performance. Music becomes less about repetition and more about remembrance, transforming each stage appearance into a living archive of shared experiences, family loss, and the deepest personal grief. Among all the challenges Willie Nelson has faced, the loss of his son remains one of the most painful. Personal family loss carries a different emotional weight than professional or public struggles. It reshapes identity, priorities, and emotional resilience in ways that are difficult to articulate. He has spoken about this experience as a defining moment in his life, one that changed how he views everything else. Compared to such a loss, other difficulties feel smaller, almost secondary. This perspective often emerges in individuals who have endured profound grief, where survival becomes the primary measure of strength. The emotional aftermath of such loss does not disappear over time. Instead, it integrates into daily life. It becomes part of memory, influencing decisions, reactions, and emotional responses. For artists like Willie Nelson, music often becomes a channel for processing this grief, even when it is not explicitly stated. Despite this pain, he continues to perform and create, suggesting that music serves as both expression and healing. It allows him to remain connected to life even in the presence of deep sorrow. Endurance, acceptance, and continuing to perform, even in the face of physical decline and emotional hardship. Willie Nelson continues to perform, demonstrating a form of endurance that is both remarkable and deeply human. His decision to remain active in music is not driven by necessity, but by passion and identity. Performing is not simply what he does, it is who he is. However, endurance at this stage looks different from earlier years. It is slower, more intentional, and carefully managed. Each performance is adapted to match his physical capacity, ensuring that he can continue without causing harm to his health. This balance between passion and limitation defines his current approach to life on stage. Audiences continue to respond with admiration, not because of perfection, but because of authenticity. Watching him perform now is witnessing decades of history expressed through a single voice that has endured time, illness, and loss. In this way, Willie Nelson's journey becomes more than a musical career. It becomes a reflection of aging, resilience, and acceptance. His continued presence on stage serves as a reminder that meaning does not fade with age, it transforms. The stage that still calls him. Even with everything his body has taken, Willie Nelson still finds his way back to the stage. It is no longer the effortless walk-on it once was, no longer the image of a man drifting into a spotlight as if it were second nature. Now there is preparation behind it, planning, and a level of care that fans in the audience rarely notice. He arrives earlier, moves slower, and relies on a trusted crew that understands his limits without needing constant explanation. Yet the moment he sits down with his guitar, something changes in him that time hasn't been able to fully erase. There is still a quiet electricity when he begins to play. The voice is older now, thinner in places, but it carries the same emotional weight that made him a defining figure in American music. The imperfections have become part of the experience rather than a flaw. Fans don't come expecting the voice of youth. They come to witness endurance, the sound of a life still being expressed, even when the body behind it is under strain. Every performance feels like a negotiation between will and limitation. What's striking is how he adapts without ever announcing that he is struggling. If he needs to sit, he sits. If a song needs to be slowed down, it is slowed without explanation. The band follows him like an extension of his breathing, adjusting to every subtle shift. It is not a performance of decline, it is a performance of persistence. And even now, in his 90s, Willie Nelson still treats the stage not as a reminder of what he's lost, but as proof that he is still here, still able to turn experience into music. The price of a lifetime on the road, decades of touring, have left marks that no spotlight can hide. Willie Nelson's life on the road was never gentle. It was built on long nights, endless travel, and the kind of pace that only a younger body can fully withstand. For most of his career, he embraced it completely. Buses became homes, hotels became temporary pauses, and the next stage was always waiting somewhere down the highway. That constant motion created a legendary career, but it also created a cost that only time would reveal. His body now carries the memory of every mile. The exhaustion of thousands of performances does not disappear when the tour ends. It accumulates quietly in joints, lungs, and stamina. Friends and crew members have often noted that the recovery time between shows has become just as important as the shows themselves. Where he once could perform night after night without pause, he now requires careful spacing, rest days, and environments that do not push his already fragile respiratory system. Yet even in this physical limitation, there is a kind of acceptance. Willie has never been someone who pretended age would not arrive. Instead, he seems to carry it as part of the story. The road gave him everything: fame, identity, survival, but it also took from him steadily and without apology. Now every appearance feels like a trade-off between what his spirit wants and what his body allows. The price of a lifetime on the road is not paid all at once. It is paid slowly, in the quiet adjustments no audience ever fully sees. The songs that carry grief. Willie Nelson's music has always held emotion close to the surface, but in his later years it has become even more layered with personal loss. Songs that once felt like storytelling now feel like memory. When he performs, there are moments when the weight of what he has lived through seems to enter the music itself. Losses that are not announced, but gently embedded in the way he phrases a line or pauses between verses. The death of his son Billy in 1991 remains one of the most painful chapters of his life. It is not something he has ever been able to fully separate from his music. In quiet moments during performances, that grief still seems present, not as something overwhelming, but as something permanently integrated into who he is. The same can be said for the many friends and collaborators he has outlived over the decades. Each loss adds another invisible thread to the emotional fabric of his songs. Even when he does not speak about these losses on stage, the audience often feels them. A familiar song can suddenly feel heavier, slower, more reflective. It is not planned. It is simply the reality of a man who has lived long enough to see entire chapters of his life disappear. His music becomes a kind of archive of grief, not in a tragic sense, but in a human one. It carries the understanding that joy and loss are never truly separate, especially in a life as long and public as his. The quiet routines of survival, away from the stage, Willie Nelson's life has become quieter, more intentional, and far more structured around health than it once was. Where spontaneity once defined his days, routine now plays a central role. There are specific rhythms to how he moves through a day, times for rest, carefully managed activities, and a growing reliance on habits that protect rather than push his body. Breathing itself has become something he is more conscious of than ever before. Simple environmental factors, dust, smoke, even cold air, are now things he actively avoids. This is a significant shift for someone whose early life was so deeply tied to environments where those conditions were constant. Friends close to him often describe this change not as restriction, but as adaptation. He is still living fully, just within a narrower set of boundaries designed to keep him stable. Food, rest, and energy management now matter in ways they did not before. Touring used to be fueled by adrenaline and momentum. Now it is fueled by planning. Even conversations around scheduling take his health into account first. What emerges is not a weakened version of Willie Nelson, but a more carefully maintained one. Someone who has learned, sometimes painfully, that survival in old age is not about resisting limitation, but working within it. What remains when everything changes? When you strip away the touring, the fame, and the decades of public identity, what remains of Willie Nelson is something quieter but deeply resilient. It is not the image of the outlaw or the cultural icon that defines him at this stage. It is the persistence of someone who continues to create, even as the structure around that creation has changed completely. What remains is music, but also memory, and a sense of purpose that has never fully faded. Even now, he continues to write, to record, and to collaborate in ways that fit his current abilities. The scale may be different, but the intention is unchanged. He is still communicating, still expressing, still reaching outward through sound. There is also something deeply human in the way he has accepted change without surrendering identity. Age has removed many things from his life, but it has not removed his connection to meaning. The man who once lived at full speed now moves with caution, but he is still moving. And in that movement, slower, more fragile, but still present, there is a kind of quiet strength that doesn't rely on volume or visibility. What remains is not a diminished version of who he was, but a distilled one, a life reduced to what matters most: expression, connection, and the act of continuing despite everything that has been lost along the way. Final reflection on life, presence, and meaning. The philosophy of living in the present aligns closely with the realities faced by Willie Nelson in his later years. When the future becomes uncertain and the past cannot be changed, the only stable ground is the present moment. This is where meaning is created, even in the simplest acts like singing a song or taking a breath. His life illustrates that control is limited, but presence is always available. Even as physical strength declines and loss accumulates, the ability to experience the present remains intact. This is where resilience truly exists, not in resisting change, but in continuing despite it. Willie Nelson's journey shows that a full life is not defined by the absence of struggle, but by the ability to continue moving through it. His music, his endurance, and his perspective all contribute to a legacy built on honesty rather than perfection. In the end, the message is simple but profound. The present moment is all that can truly be lived, and within it, even the heaviest experiences can still carry meaning.